Tennessee picks up a commit over the weekend, a running back, 4-star, and that was just the tip of the iceberg for the 865 Live Tennessee recruiting talk here on your Monday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys being here today, as always, for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Shout out to Everydayers. Everydayers, tomorrow is the mailbag edition of the show, so get in your questions, comments, concerns, Tennessee football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, whatever you guys have. If you guys just want to ask me a question, @_Kaner and @LockedOnVols, we'll answer those questions on tomorrow's shows. But appreciate you guys subscribing to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and wherever you find your podcast. We are an audio-first podcast, so appreciate you guys supporting it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. All right, got a lot to get into today, but first and foremost, want to give shout-outs, want to give congrats to the Lady Vols softball team. College World Series bound, Oklahoma City. How about that? First time since 2015. That's some great stuff. Really is. It's been a fun team to watch a little bit this year when I could, and obviously keep track of. Hopefully, I will have on a Lady Vols softball correspondent here to the podcast. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe this week, but to kind of talk about Lady Vols softball because they deserve some conversation. I know a lot of you guys have been mentioning that to me, but 100% congratulations to those ladies. Got a bunch of stuff to get into today. Let's go ahead and start off with recruiting. Recruiting talk in segment 1. Tennessee, a defensive lineman, DeSean Terry, enters the portal. That's in segment 2. And then McKenzie Milton to Tennessee. Interesting stuff. What's his role going to be? That is in segment number 3. Tennessee picks up a commit, the 12th commit for the class of 2024. It is a highly rated 4-star prospect by the name of Peyton Lewis. He is 6'1", 190 pounds from Salem, Virginia. According to the On3 industry rankings, he's the 197th overall prospect in the country, so he is a top 200 player according to the industry rankings, which again weights 25% for On3, 25% from 247, and actually a little bit more for On3. I forgot the percentages. We did this I work for the company, I should know this, but the the rankings are weighted heavily more for On3 and 247s. I think 25% for Rivals.com, and I think 10% for ESPN, but nonetheless, it's top 200 player, good player. 197th ranked player in the country, 13th running back in the nation, the 4th prospect from the state of Virginia, and we're really intrigued to see kind of what he looks like here. This is a guy that Tennessee, coveted, that Tennessee liked, that Tennessee got on campus. He had been trending to Tennessee for quite some time, and ultimately he went ahead and made his commitment known Saturday during the 865 Live Memorial Day recruiting events. Big props to Jerry Mack for getting this done, and Tennessee now has 12 commits for the class of 2024. They are top 10 in the 2024 football industry comparison commits. The rankings, if you will, the national rankings, 9th, moving up from number 12, joining fellow big-time prospects and Jake Merklinger, who's a top 75 prospect, J.J. Harrell, who's a top 125 prospect, Jonathan Eccles, who's a top 30 prospect, Caleb Beasley, who's a top 140 prospect, and then there is Peyton Lewis. So that was really, really good news. If you look over at VolQuest.com, the impact analysis that was written by my colleague Matt Ray, kind of breaking down this commitment. And he has a quote in here from speaking with On3 Director of Scouting and Rankings, Charles Powers. This was a quote to VolQuest. Quote, "With Payton Lewis, you have to start with the speed. This is a guy who can run in the 10.5s and the 100 meters in track and also has very good times in the 55 meters. He transfers that over to the football field. And you can see it with his ability to pull away at the second level. He breaks off long runs. I think that skill set is one that is very valuable in Tennessee's offense. When Tennessee gets a defense in a bad look, when they run up tempo, you go with a quick handoff, having the running back that can pull away at once. He gets at the second level due to a favorable look and is really valuable in Tennessee's offense. He shows the ability to break some tackles at the second level. He is not just a speed back. I think he has some well-rounded facets to his game. I think from a skill set perspective, the type of back that he is an ideal fit for what Tennessee does with Josh Heupel. I think he is a really nice get for Tennessee. He has a potential to be an explosive playmaker once he starts getting carries. And that is end quote. That is a message from Charles Powers, the director of scouting and rankings over at On3, and he gave that quote to our impact analysis over at VolQuest.com. So weekend was started off on a really, really good note. That is the first running back commit for Tennessee, and a lot of fans are saying, why can't Tennessee get a running back? Why can't Tennessee get a high-end running back? This is a top 200 player. Is it a 5-star? No, it's not. Is it a top 50 player? No, it's not. But this is a really, really nice player. So good job by Tennessee moving up to number 9 in the industry rankings for the national scale and picking up its 12th commit, first running back by the name of Peyton Lewis. What else from the recruiting weekend for Tennessee? Well, a lot of good stuff. Tennessee, hosted the Memorial Day 865 live event. We got tons of coverage, Saturday night, Sunday, Monday over at VolQuest.com. Hope you guys have been checking that out and become members with us over at VolQuest.com. It started with Peyton Lewis's commit, but we talked to a number of high-end prospects that were on campus. Matt Ray, Austin Price, Rob Lewis was over there, Brent Hubbs and myself back at the home base and kind of churning out some content. A real team effort, but a great job by Matt and Austin getting over there and talking with these guys. And these are blue-chip prospects who are on campus. It just really goes to show you the elite pool of players Tennessee is dipping into now. And, Sammy Brown had his official he had his official visit, at Tennessee this weekend. And I still think he, is a long shot for Tennessee. I really do. But I think Tennessee and, talking with Austin and Matt and kind of seeing, what he's been saying, I think Tennessee might be second now, pulling even, if not in front of Clemson, if he were to not go to Georgia. But he wrapped up his official visits, and Tennessee looks to be in good position, but still behind the leader in Georgia, who's been the foregone conclusion that that's where he is going to go. A wide receiver, Amari Jefferson, of Baylor School in the Chattanooga area. He was quoted earlier this week in saying that Tennessee's probably behind Georgia and Alabama. Coming out of this Saturday visit, he said that they pulled even, which is really, really good. He'll be back on for a June 23rd through 25th official visit, and he is a prospect that is coveted and as highly regarded as Mike Matthews and as Ryan Wingo to this coaching staff, especially being an in-state prospect. This is big, and it sounds like Amari Jefferson had a really, really good weekend here at Tennessee. Daniel Hill, another running back. You got Peyton Lewis, but you want to add another running back in this class. Highly rated 4-star prospect. First time ever being at Tennessee, and it was a good weekend for him. He said he didn't really know what to expect. He didn't really have Tennessee highly regarded because he hadn't been here yet, but he got here. He liked it here, and he'll definitely be back. Going to give him an official visit most likely, and he has Tennessee in his top 3 right now, so that was good to see from highly rated 4-star prospect running back Daniel Hill. Camarion Fountain, defensive lineman. Tennessee really, really likes him. The relationship with Rodney Garner has gone a long, long way. Looking like a summertime decision for Fountain. He will officially visit Tennessee in June, so that was good. Getting him back on campus this weekend to kind of flush that out. Georgia commit Mello Jones. He is a guy that I believe this can go all the way down into December. He's committed to Georgia right now. It's going to be between Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. And he right now says he's coming back, likely for an official visit. I believe that's what he said, for the Tennessee-Georgia game in November. And we'll have to see. I'm sure Tennessee will try their darndest to get him to campus for an official well before that, because if you are competing for a prospect, you don't want them to come to that game where you're playing that team where you're going up against. Why? Not because Tennessee doesn't believe it can beat Georgia, but why on earth would you want them to go to that game? The chance of losing. You want to get them in for another game or another weekend in June and try to get that official visit, stay on top of mind and all that type of stuff, especially considering November's a long time away, right? So we'll see if Tennessee can flip Mello Jones. And then Boo Carter, another one of those guys, says he'll be back here in June for an official visit. Michigan's in that play, Ohio State, Florida, Miami, Colorado. The guy that loves the process, but getting back down to campus this weekend. Not a whole lot of football talk this past week, but spending time with coaches, talking with other players, kind of bonding, having a whole lot of fun. That was kind of the message from Boo Carter and a lot of these other prospects. Not a whole lot of football talk, just kind of hanging out, fun, doing corny stuff like scavenger hunts and mini putt-putt. It sounds really silly from the outside, which I agree. I think it does sound silly, but you get these guys in there and they get competitive, right? And they they don't want to lose in the scavenger hunt, and it becomes fun, and it becomes, just again, another bonding experience. So it sounds like Tennessee had a really, really good weekend for the 865 Live. Amir Jackson, another guy. Jaden Riddell commits to Georgia. Amir Jackson, Georgia or Florida. Tennessee's in this picture now. He came up and spent time with Coach Heupel and Tennessee coaches for the first time ever on campus. That was big. So we'll see. These seeds were planted. We'll see which ones, flower by the end of June. You like that? Maybe by the end of the summer. That this weekend was monumental for Tennessee's 2023 recruiting class, and it hopes to be the same here for 2024. But Tennessee does get one commit out of the weekend. 4-star running back Peyton Lewis. Tennessee now has 12 commits for the class of 2024, and we will see what comes of this weekend. Sounds like a really, really good weekend for the 865 Live. Hey, when we come back, Tennessee loses a defensive lineman to the transfer portal. How big of a loss is this? It's a loss in more ways than one. We'll discuss when we return right here on Locked On Vols. But hey, I'll remind you guys about a proud sponsor of the show. That is Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. That is Built. If you're like me, summertime is here. You don't want to sacrifice your snacks you don't want to sacrifice your snacks for healthy tasting things that might taste kind of poor. But you're not going to get that with Built, the Built Bars or the Puffs. Why? Well, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. So everybody loves chocolate, right? But it's stacked with 17 grams of protein, only has 4 grams of sugar, only 130 calories. You're kind of getting the best of both worlds. It tastes really, really well. It's 100% dark chocolate, and it's stuffed with protein with light on the calories and the sugar. And now you don't have to wait around and order your boxes at Built.com. You still can for specialty flavors. But now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club, buy a 4-bar box of Built Bar or Puffs at Walmart, maybe a 13-bar box of Built Bars or Puffs at your Sam's Club, or continue as always to order specialty flavors. That is at Built.com. Built.com, Built Bars, they're amazing. You've got to try them. All right, guys, we'll go back into your Monday edition of Locked On Vols with Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys being here. Shout out everydayers. Don't forget, Twitter Tuesday. That is coming up on tomorrow's show. Any questions you guys want to ask me about literally anything, those are some of my favorite questions when they're not about, Tennessee or Tennessee football or whatever. Of course, I love those questions. Those are fun. We'll discuss. And, last week we got a couple segments out of some Twitter Tuesdays. So that's the challenge. Try to make me spend a couple segments on it. And trust me, that's a welcome challenge because we are in the month of May and June. That is a slow month. So I love those ideas there. But anything you guys want to ask me about football, recruiting, anything Tennessee, anything about my life, anything, just whatever, at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. We'll spend some time on tomorrow's show for you everydayers. Of course, when you make that your first listen. Got a haircut this week. Shout out to Harry's down there in Halls. Did a fantastic job making this ugly mug look a little bit more presentable. You know the phrase, I got a face for radio for sure, but when I go get my haircut at Harry's, I look a little bit more presentable in front of the camera. So they got a great location down there in Halls. Do a fantastic job. Little beard trim. Got my hard part here looking great. So go see Harry's down in Halls for all of your hair cutting needs. All right, so we've got DeSean Terry. He entered the transfer portal on Friday, and he'd been a guy that kind of been rumored that way. He missed spring due to a family situation that he had to go attend to, but he was back. He graduated, he walked, and the thought was that everything was going to be okay with him. Turns out, because of his family situation, he is going to try to transfer somewhere closer back home in Mississippi. And so I don't think this is a situation to where, he's leaving, looking for the bag, not happy with playing time, all that type of stuff. I just think that this was a family situation that he needed to go be closer to home. So nonetheless, DeSean Terry has left the program, has entered the transfer portal, and that means Tennessee's kind of at a loss of a key position. More on that here in a moment. But in 2 seasons at Tennessee, if you remember, he came over from Kansas. He was recruited by Rodney Gardner early on in the recruiting process, but he stuck with it. He went to Kansas, and he lost a whole lot of weight and kind of turned into a football player, transferred over to Tennessee before the 2021 season, and played a big role for Tennessee, started some games over the last 2 years. But as we know, that defensive line, it's a rotational position, and so he wasn't out there for 60 snaps a game. But in 2 seasons, he had 35 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 3 sacks at Tennessee. As a graduate transfer, I believe he will have 2 years of eligibility remaining at his next stop, and due to the COVID year as well. So we'll see exactly what he's going to do. He'll have to be in a hurry because summer classes are beginning this week. And, he'll need to find a spot and get enrolled and get into practice and all that type of stuff, or get into workouts, rather, as quickly as he can. He'll have immediate eligibility. And, again, I believe he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So what does that mean for Tennessee? Well, in the grand scheme of things, you don't think it'll mean an awful lot, right? But, I mean, Tennessee, in terms of defensive tackle bodies, they don't have an awful lot. That's why you went out and got Omar Norman-Lott, this last offseason, right? And so, at Leo, you feel good about the options. Somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to take that step and be a player. Roman Harrison's going to get a ton of PT. Joshua Joseph, James Pierce, Caleb Herring. You've got a lot of high-end players there, especially with Josephs, Pierce, and Herring. On the other side of the strong side defensive end, Tyler Barron's an option. He's been here a while, and his ceiling is so high. If he can find some consistency, you have Tyree West, Dominic Bailey. All those guys have played a lot of football for you the last couple of years. But at the 2 defensive tackle spots, the shade, the 3, the 5 at points in times, whenever you're moving around, the interior guys, if you will, you don't have an awful lot of bodies. Omari Thomas is kind of the big man on the block. He's kind of your starter. He's a guy that you saw his snap count come down a little bit as the year went on last year, and that's a good thing. You don't ever want a Matthew Butler situation where you're playing, over 800 snaps in a season. Rodney Garner does not want that whatsoever. But Amari Thomas is back, and Amari Thomas is a guy that's going to lead that group. You got Bryson Eason, who, man, I love his story. Part of the Whitehaven trio, the recruiting class of 2021, I believe. And, starting at linebacker and then moving to the defensive end and then moving into the interior. He had a red shirt. He was always a bigger guy. And he's turned into a really nice option in the interior for Rodney Garner and for Tennessee. He still has the athleticism as a guy that played linebacker, a guy that played out in space. But he weighs 300 pounds, and he's quick. And the more and more he learns and deciphers how to play the defensive tackle position, the better he gets. But, he played a big role last year. He's going to continue to play a big role this year. So Omari Thomas and Bryson Eason will lead that group. And then who do you have? Well, you have Omar Norman-Lott. And I think at points in times this spring, he was kind of in no man's land. But again, he was coming over from Arizona State, adapting to the way Tennessee practices, the way Tennessee drills, the way Rodney Garner coaches. And I know we say it all the time, but unless you've seen it in person, and I've seen it a couple of times, in practice, the few minutes we've been out there, boy, he gets after it. A baptism by fire, if you will, is kind of where Omar Norman-Lott was this spring. But he is a guy that's played an awful lot, and he'll have a couple of years here at Tennessee. And I believe he'll have a couple of years. And he'll be in that rotation this fall for sure. You also have Elijah Simmons. Elijah Simmons is a guy that's had such a high ceiling. He's always been a guy that you've thought of that could be great, but has never been consistent enough. Injuries have been a thing. Weight has been a thing for him, trying to keep it off. It's a guy that's, whenever he's right, he's explosive. He might be one of the better defensive linemen in the country in terms of pure athleticism and just force. But again, it's never all come together, if you will. And so Elijah Simmons now more than ever, I think, is going to have to step up and have to step up in a big way. You've got pretty much a 12-man rotation for Tennessee on that defensive line. We're including the ends, the Leos, and the defensive tackles. So not a whole lot of guys going to be charged with playing a whole lot of snaps, but you want guys to be fresh. But with the loss of Amari McNeil, with the loss of a DeSean Terry, with the loss of some of these other guys, Tennessee's numbers at the defensive tackle spot in particular are kind of dwindling a little bit. Again, you've got Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, Omar Norman-Lott, Elijah Simmons. That's 4. I think David Hobbs will be in that conversation, the 5-star freshman who missed spring, but is a guy that is going to be a big part of this defensive line for years to come, in my opinion. Maybe Nathan Robinson, maybe Trevor Duncan, deciphering on where they're going to put him. Is it going to be offense? Is it going to be defense? Tennessee just needs bodies, and they need to grow up in a hurry. So DeSean Terry, a decent player, not an all-star, not a guy that was a regular starter for Tennessee, but a guy that ate up some snaps and a guy that was productive, and it's a position of where there's not a whole lot of bodies. So him leaving, it's a little bit concerning for Tennessee. But, of course, some of these young guys have got to grow up in a hurry, and you're going to have to rely more and more on Amari Thomas, Omar Norman-Lott, Bryson Eason, and Elijah Simmons. So I wouldn't characterize this as big-time news, but it is worth noting, again, just because it is a position where there's not a whole lot of bodies. You don't want to lose any of these guys, and I'm not saying any of these Leos have arrived, but if you dropped one Leo, you still have 3 other ones that you know are going to play and can play for you. It wouldn't be as big of a deal. Maybe if you drop a defensive back. Tennessee's been playing shorthanded in the defensive backfield all the time, it feels like. But because it's defensive tackle, we'll see exactly what happens. But best of luck to DeSean Terry. Hopefully his family situation is resolved, and he can continue his collegiate career elsewhere and find success. Hey, when we come back, McKenzie Milton. Yeah, does that name ring a bell? One of college football's best quarterbacks a couple years ago. He is now on staff, reuniting with Josh Heupel. What does this mean? What will he do? More on that here in a moment when Locked On Vols returns. All right, guys, we got a couple more minutes left here of this Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys being here. Shout out every day or Twitter Tuesday tomorrow. Love you guys that continue to tune in when it's not the season. Obviously, the numbers are just through the roof for this show during the months of football, and I can't thank you enough. But those of you that continue to show up in May and June and July and April, can't say enough. You guys are truly, truly incredible, and every sense of the word every day. So what do I have for you here in segment number 3? Well, McKenzie Milton. You remember who McKenzie Milton was? Yeah, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, albeit at a group of 5 at UCF. Really, really good quarterback. Had that devastating injury, finished his career at FSU, and then that's kind of all she wrote, right? But the comeback story is kind of the theme here with McKenzie Milton when it's all said and done. I'll get into that here in a moment, but essentially he got hurt in the 2018 season, and then he didn't see action again until the 2021 season as a backup quarterback at FSU. But the fact that he overcame all those odds and came back to the field is truly inspiring. Well, McKenzie Milton, who was coached by Josh Heupel for really one season as a starting quarterback until his injury, and then of course he was still in the program and on the team and everything before his transfer during his injury. He is reuniting with Josh Heupel, and he is becoming an offensive analyst for the University of Tennessee. That was announced over the weekend. It's really interesting. I like this move. This is a quote from Heupel from the UT release. Quote, McKenzie represents everything that is great about college football. His perseverance, determination, and leadership are attributes that can make him successful as a player and will no doubt translate to him being an outstanding future coach. He's always been a student of the game and understands the why behind what we do. We are thrilled to welcome McKenzie and I guess his wife Janie and son Madden to Rocky Top. If you look at what Milton did at UCF, in 3 seasons on the field at UCF, he threw for 8,683 yards, 72 touchdowns. He accounted for 9,761 yards of total offense, the 3rd most in UCF history. Milton combined for 92 touchdowns at UCF, completed 61.8 completion percentage. If you remember when UCF won the national championship, right? I love making fun of that. I will never not make fun of that. And even though Danny White, who was the athletic director at UCF, was there when the self-proclaimed, self-appointed national champion UCF, kind of did all that Twitter parade, I will never not make fun of that. I think it's hilarious. Even in the real time, back then, I understood what he was doing. I understand what he's doing now, and I understand now what he was doing, especially seeing him up close and working and what he's doing here at Tennessee. Danny White is a salesman. Danny White is an advertiser. Danny White is good at his job. So what he was doing by the whole self-proclaimed national championship thing back in 2017 was bringing eyeballs to UCF, bringing money, bringing advertisement, all that type of stuff. I mean, it was smart. It was funny, but it was smart. But if you remember during that season, McKenzie Milton was your starting quarterback, who was phenomenal and for Scott Frost and all that, before he left to go to Nebraska. He led UCF to a perfect 13-0 record in that season in 2017, including a win over Auburn in the Peach Bowl. He was Peach Bowl MVP. He came in 8th in the Heisman Trophy voting and was a finalist for the Manning Award. He broke a single-season UCF records for passing yards, touchdowns, passing efficiency, and yards per attempt. He was 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting later that year. With his first season with Josh Heupel, he led UCF to an 11-0 regular season record. He was a 2-time he was a 2-time American Athletic Conference Player of the Year, and in 2021, he was named the Mayo Clinic Comeback Player of the Year after coming back from the devastating knee injury that sidelined him in 2018. So he had, let's see here, as a freshman, he had really, really good numbers. Of course, as a sophomore, he had that great season. And then before his injury in 2018, let's see here. He had 4,337 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 9 interceptions as a sophomore in 2017. Then he threw for 2,663 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions as a junior in 2018 before suffering a career-threatening knee injury in November of 2018. The reconstructive surgery required to repair Milton's leg left him sidelined for more than 1,000 days before returning to the field in 2021. He came out, whenever the one-time transfer. Actually, I think this is before that. But anyway, he came out, announced he was going to transfer. Dillon Gabriel come on and taking that team by storm. Of course, now Dillon Gabriel is in Oklahoma, but he came in, did really, really well. McKenzie Milton said, hey, this is Dillon's team now. I want to step out of the spotlight. I want to play, but this is his team, and I respect that. So he left. He went to FSU. And, he was a backup at FSU. We saw a little bit in that September 5th game. He led a 10-point comeback against Notre Dame. Notre Dame still won, but essentially, his starting days were over. But he came back, and he played. And I thought that was huge. It was a great story of college football, perseverance, determination, all that type of stuff. And then his season ended at Florida State in 2021. Why I think this is super, super interesting at Tennessee. First, it reunites him and Heupel, quarterback and coach. And, of course, Joey Halsley's got a great success story in that regard. He was a quarterback in that room at Oklahoma back in the mid-2000s. He's been with Heupel for the last 15 years. And now, look, he's offensive coordinator at Tennessee with Josh Heupel. He is an extension of Josh Heupel in this offense. Maybe McKenzie Milton can be that down the line. Who knows? But he's getting his coaching career started at Tennessee as an offensive analyst. Why I love all this? I love it because he was a good quarterback. I love the determination factor coming back from injury. I love all this as well. But this is also interesting, and I don't think enough people are kind of talking about this right now. He's an offensive analyst, of course. You have to separate for the most part, obviously. I mean, you can endorse and you can support and everything, coaching staff to NIL collectives. But of course, you got to leave all the the monetary stuff to the NIL collective. We understand that, right? But this is a guy that recognizes name, image, and likeness value. Okay, so when he transferred to Florida State and when name, image, likeness became a thing in July of 2021, Milton was one of the first athletes to take advantage of the new rules. If you remember, he and Miami quarterback De'Aaron King, God, he was all over it, right? He was never a very good quarterback. They became the co-founders and public faces of Dreamfield. It was a company specializing in booking live appearances for student athletes, and they were big in NFTs. He was the subject of Dreamland's first NFT auction set for July 6, 2021. I mean, he was really big in that movement, right? So he's a guy that was a former player not too long ago, now trying to be a coach, understanding the landscape in today's realm of name, image, likeness, right? He kind of hits on all three. If you're checking the boxes here, he kind of hits on all those. I think that the sky is the potential for him as a coach. And I think it's really, really interesting that he's going to be here at Tennessee. So, offensive analyst, what's that mean? Well, in a brief 30-second synopsis, you can help with practice and all that type of stuff, but you are game planning, you are watching film, you are scouting, you are helping put together game plans, you're helping put together scouts, breaking down film, all that type of stuff. You're in the quarterback room, you can help in all that. You just can't be an on-the-field coach. And a lot of stepping stones for great coaches started with offensive analyst positions, or if you were somewhere, you got fired, you come in, you be an analyst, and you get back into the game. I think this is huge. And what can this mean for a young quarterback like Nico Iamaleava? I just think that it's really, really good that a guy like McKenzie Milton, who speaks that language, quarterback, NIL, expectations, all that type of stuff. And even with Joe Milton, starter, transfer, starter, bench, now back to starter. I think he can speak many different languages, and I think he's going to be big for the University of Tennessee. So intriguing to see kind of how all this works out. Should be exciting. McKenzie Milton, now an offensive analyst here at Tennessee, reuniting with his former college coach in Josh Heupel. All right, a jam-packed, fun edition of Locked On Vols here on a Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll come back. We will answer your Twitter Tuesday questions tomorrow. Hope you guys all enjoyed your Memorial Day, and you will enjoy your Memorial Day celebrations today. Stay safe. Really, really do appreciate you guys. We'll come back. We'll break down where Tennessee is going in regional play. That announcement set for later today at noon. Eastern Time. Well, hopefully we'll talk a little Tennessee softball and continue to recount the 865 Live event for Tennessee recruiting from over the weekend. This is Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys.